Welcome, everyone. I'm Melissa Joles with RDA. RDA is a group of independent PBE distributors throughout the United States. Our goal is to provide our members and their collision shop customers marketing and sales support. To find out more about RDA, you can go to our website at www.rda-impact.com. Thank you for joining us today for the presentation on the top 10 industry influences for 2023, presented by industry expert Frank Terlep. Frank is founder of Auto Accelerators, now Vice President of ADAS Services at Opus IVS. The presentation will take approximately 30 minutes. We are recording it and we'll post it on our YouTube channel. If you do have questions during the webinar, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and Frank will answer them at the end of the presentation. Now, I'll turn it over to Frank.
Well, thanks, Melissa, and welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time to participate in today's webinar. Hopefully, when we're done, you'll walk away a little bit smarter than you were when you got here, and you'll feel that your time was worth it. So again, I'm Frank Terlep, VP of ADAS over at Opus IVS. I'm also presently the chairman of CIC, and so I'm going to spend the next 30 plus minutes talking to you about, again, this is my subjective opinion about what I see as the top 10 industry influences for 2023. Now, as I told the CIC audience, I'll tell you, if Melissa invites me back next year to do this again, you can tell me I was wrong on whatever ones I was wrong. So let's go and move on. And again, welcome to 2023. We're already in month 2, which I cannot believe. It's already February. But again, I think Melissa and I have done this previously. Every year I like to sit down and kind of look at the year and say, okay, so what happened last year? What's going to happen? What do I think is going to happen, or what's going to influence our industry for the next year? And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. Again, we're talking about the top 10. Let's go over those really quickly. So, and again, a lot of this stuff, most of you are familiar with. And again, by the way, we'll answer questions at the end, so please send your questions in to Melissa. But the top 10 that we look at are consolidation, ADAS services and calibrations, employee shortages. Again, most of you on this call or meeting are experiencing that. We're going to talk about insurance companies. Again, they're one of the organizations that influence our collision industry pretty heavily. Parts, again, many of you who are collision centers understand what's going on with parts. OEM influence, we're going to talk about how we believe that's going to change over the coming year. BEVs, battery electric vehicles. If you can't go anywhere today without hearing everybody's investing all these billions of dollars in BEVs. And then I'm going to talk about some business technologies I think are going to influence the industry, talk about some of the economic uncertainties, and of course, last but not least, our wonderful government and their regulations. Okay, so let's start with consolidation. Couple things. There's some things I think, again, in my opinion, only subjective opinion, I would not be surprised to see 2 mid-market consolidators come together. Who's a mid-market consolidator? Well, you've got Classic, you've got Crash, you've got multiple mid-market consolidators in the market today. And as you saw last year, by the way, you saw Crash and Service Geeks come together. You could possibly see a Classic in a Joe Hudson, or a Classic in somebody else. Because remember, most of this consolidation is being driven by private equity firms, and the private equity firms above the shops, they may see an opportunity to bring 2 organizations together. So again, don't be surprised if you see 2 mid-market consolidators come together. Also, it's my opinion, and for those of you who are independent shops out there, I think independent single location collision centers, for the most part, are going to become part of something bigger. So what does that mean? What does becoming part of something bigger mean? Well, first of all, I think 1 locations are going to go to 2, 2 are going to go to 3 or 4, 4 are going to go to 5 or 6. And so you're going to see the independents become bigger. They're not going to be single location. You're going to see a large number become multiple location owners. You're also going to see a percentage of those independent single location owners become part of a network or a franchise. a network like CCG, One Collision, a franchise like CarStar or Fix or Pro Color or whatever the other ones are out there. I think, again, you're going to see independents do that. And I also I think we're going to continue to see that. A lot of your good independents are going to get acquired. And it's my belief over the next year or two, you're going to see a 5% of the shops go out of business. And so that's your independents and your single locations. The major consolidators are going to continue to acquire, but I think they're also going to continue to open greenfield locations across the country, as well as open other services. What other services would you say? Well, number one, I think I just read the other day, Caliber Car Care opened their 33rd location. They're also in the glass business. So I think you're going to see more and more consolidators, the larger ones, expand their services over and above what they're doing today. Now, another under the radar consolidation effort that's going on is with new car dealers. I mean, it is going gangbusters in the new car dealership marketplace. And that consolidation is going to lead to much larger dealership-based collision groups. So you're going to see the Lithias of the world, the Asburys of the world continue to get bigger. And as they get bigger, their collision presence is going to get bigger, I should say. And then last on this slide, the consolidation doesn't stop at the shops. I mean, I don't know if you've been following the glass industry, but Driven Brands went from nowhere to number 2 in the marketplace in a year. And so that glass industry is consolidating, insurers are consolidating. Paint companies and distributors will continue to consolidate. Equipment suppliers will, associations, every part of our business, in my opinion, is going to be affected by consolidation. So next, the second big influencer, in my opinion, is going to be ADAS services and calibrations. So today, there's between 90 and 100 million ADAS equipped vehicles on the road. Today, beginning in 2022, 98% of all vehicles manufactured are going to have some type of ADAS equipment on it. And so this business, in my opinion, and I've said this now for the last 18, 24 months, this is probably the biggest business opportunity our industry has seen in the last 20 years. So you're going to see the major consolidators, Gerber, Caliber, Crash, Classic, all the big ones. They're going to acquire local and regional ADAS service and calibration companies to service their collision centers. So for example, Caliber owns a company called ProTech. ProTech does other ADAS service and calibrations. Crash Champions owns a company called ATE, similar model. Gerber owns a company called Mobile Auto Solutions, similar model. So again, that's going to continue. But I also think you're going to see a large number of local and regional MSOs also open up their own ADAS service and calibration businesses. So for example, if I'm a 4-store location, 5-store location, and I want to generate more revenue for my business or for me individually, I'm probably going to open up a separate LLC or other identified business to service my shops for ADAS services and calibrations. I get a call every day on that today. I think you're going to see a couple of new regional national ADAS service and calibration companies get launched. There's already one in the marketplace today with a licensee model, but I think you'll see more. And also, because I'm in the business, I can tell you that you can expect to see a new end-to-end ADAS services and calibration management, billing, and documentation platform be introduced to the company as well, to the industry as well. So that my thoughts about ADAS and calibrations. Now let's talk about employee shortages, and I'm sure everybody on this call understands and feels the issue with employee shortages. And in my opinion, it's not going away. Now, by the way, with that said, there's a lot of efforts all throughout the industry trying to solve this. I just don't think it's solvable in the short term. It's a long-term problem that's going to take time for this industry to solve. So what does that mean? Well, I think it's going to increase consolidation. I think it's going to drive up technician compensation. I think it's obviously it's increasing cycle times. I mean, I think I read this morning that the length of rental is over 18 days today. I think I saw that today. It's already limiting revenues for organizations that can only fix so many cars a month. And again, I mentioned there's a lot of efforts going on trying to drive this new training and mentorship model in the business. So that's my thoughts about employee shortages. Let's talk about insurance companies. For those of you who have car insurance, this is probably most of you, we all got an increase last year. While this year you're going to see another increase, anywhere from 7 to 17%. Now again, those increases are coming slow because each insurance company has to go through each state regulatory process. But you're going to continue, in my opinion, you're going to continue to see the insurance premiums continue to rise to offset inflation, offset the cost of repairs going up, et cetera, et cetera. But you're also going to see a dramatic increase in the insurance industry investing and implementing technology at scale. I mean, COVID forced the insurers to do in 1 year what they would have taken 5 to 10 years. And so you're going to see a dramatic implementation of chat bots and natural language processing in insurers. You're going to see more and more telematics be utilized for insurance companies, utilized by insurance companies. You're going to see more and more insurance ecosystems. So what's an insurance ecosystem? Well, you've got companies like Guidewire, which is an ecosystem which insurers can tap into, and they can get different software and different applications through those ecosystems. On the other hand, the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of investments in insurtechs. That investment's going down dramatically. You can read about that online. Claims automation is going up to the roof. You're going to see more and more claims automation, AI, digitized claims, digital imaging, photo-based claims, video-based claims. That's going to continue to increase dramatically. And of course, you're going to see more and more digital payments offered by the insurers as well. Talked about parts. Again, most of you who are on this call, if you're a collision repairer, you're experiencing parts challenges. And while I think some of the supply chain issues will get better, and if you notice that's in parentheses, I don't think it's going away this year. I think you're going to continue to have challenges in the supply chain. I think more and more e-commerce part platforms are going to expand because just to take cost out of the process. One thing that people don't talk much about is the OEs are spending a lot of money on EVs, which means that money that they're spending on EVs is being pulled from internal combustion engine investment. So some of that investment in EVs are affecting, in my opinion, the ICE parts and parts availability. I think you're going to continue to see price increases across parts, and availability issues will continue to affect not just OEM, but also aftermarket, as well as recycled parts. Lack of parts means increased pricing leads to more repair time, and again, also affects length of rental. That's my thoughts on parts. Now let's talk about the OEMs. When I presented this at CIC, I had some interesting responses, but in my opinion, I think the OEM certifications become much more important than they are today, where they were last year, because the OEMs are really pushing that piece of their business. Obviously, OEM repair procedures are going to become, in my opinion, much more important as part of the repair process. I don't know how repairers today properly repair a vehicle without properly utilizing repair procedures on every vehicle. There should be 100% usage on OEM repair procedures, but it's not. OEM training and iCar training, the requirements are going to increase. I just think that's a natural because of the complexity of the vehicles. You heard me talk about telematics earlier. I think telematics for the OEMs, and again, it won't be a big shift this year, but you'll start to see some pilots and some testing on OEM telematics shifting to first notice of loss capabilities. But I also think you'll see the OEMs with their telematics partner with insurers, so insurers can use that data as well. I also believe the OEMs are going to continue to increase their philosophy on parts restrictions. I think, and if it may have already been announced, but I think Toyota is going to announce parts restrictions if they haven't already done it. And I think more and more of your OEMs, because if you're not a certified shop, you won't be able to repair the vehicles. And then, of course, I think the OEMs are also going to want more data from the shops related to the repairs of their vehicles to make sure those vehicles were repaired correctly, the repair procedures were used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, there's a few thoughts I have on OEMs. Oh, one other thing that came up at CIC is someone walked up to me from Ford and said, Frank, you missed one. And I said, what do you mean I missed one? He goes, don't forget, the next time you talk about this, talk about OEMs and insurance. And he was right. I mean, there's several OEMs already in the insurance business. I think you're going to see more and more of that this year and beyond. All right, let's talk a little bit about battery electric vehicles. And again, you can see on the screen, the red arrow is where we sit today. And then you can see just from the trajectory of the graph, what the expectation is here from this Lauren McDonald chart. It's going to be a pretty large number. It's going to be by 2030, I think EVs, new car sales, is going to be a pretty big number, particularly on the coast, particularly California, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, New York, on the coast. I think big time in the coast, big time in the South, Florida, Georgia, Texas. But in the middle part of the country, I don't think so because of the cold, because of the, several other things. But I think on the coast in the South part of the country, BEVs are going to increase pretty dramatically. And again, number one is the industry is pouring in a bunch of money. I mean, it's like they're throwing money in a big hole in the ground at EVs. Market shares now is about 7%. The revenue is going to go, could be as much as 50 billion in this year. But the problem is most of your EV models, most, not all, most of your newer EV models are not going to sell any more than 50, 60,000 units. So from a repair perspective, unless you're Tesla, unless you're Ford, and then now as Rivian grows, Lucid grows, Amazon grows their EV Rivian truck fleet. I think the percentage of EVs that shops will repair, again, separate from what I just mentioned, still going to be pretty low. But this year you're going to see, Tesla thinks their truck will come out. I don't think it will. Chevy's going to have the Blazer under 50 grand, Silverado over 100 grand. The area is going to be out in limited numbers. Nissan's already said that recently at the NADA. It's going to be out this year. BMW i5, again, coming out. And Hyundai is, pretty cool looking Ioniq 6 coming out. So you're going to see a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of new EVs. And then you just saw, I don't know if you read the news, Tesla just dropped their price, Ford just dropped their price because of the new laws that were passed regarding rebates. They're still a little fuzzy, I think, in the government. So they're still trying to figure that out. Anyway, BEVs. Next, let's talk about what I think some of the business technologies that will affect our industry. Build data. For those of you who don't know what build data is what typically is the data associated with the way the vehicle was built, where it was built, how it was built. And build data is pretty important, particularly when you talk about ADAS identifications, total losses, and so on. I think you're going to see more and more of that be integrated into more and more industry solutions. I think you're going to see an increase in AI, artificial intelligence, AR and VR, augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR. I think you're going to see more and more of that implemented into the repair world. Several of the OEMs are already doing some of that today. I think you're going to see new repair procedure technologies. There's already some been introduced by some companies. So you're going to see some of that, which is great. We need it. You're going to see some new ADAS service and calibration technologies out, as well as some new ADAS identification technologies in both those cases. And I think you're going to see some new ADAS validation and documentation technologies. Those last three, I think, are critical because ADAS, because it affects acceleration, braking, and steering, the documentation required is really critical in terms of documenting what was done, documenting the results, et cetera, et cetera. Next, we have the economy. Interest rates continue to go up. So money's more expensive. What does that mean to us? Well, number one, housing sales have taken a dive. It's more expensive to buy a car. Now you're seeing 84-month car loans. The private equity market is more expensive for them to get money. So again, money's more expensive. The question is, will we, or when will we experience a recession? The good news about our business typically is collisions typically, and I hate to say it, but I will anyway, is recession proof in parentheses. Typically our business, people still drive. Problem is people don't get their cars fixed in a lot of cases in a recession. So for those of you who have 401ks like me, it's not so good right now. But again, what goes up, what's come down will go back up. So again, that's affecting also investments. Talked about the housing market. But the good news is if you're a rental owner, you're doing great. You get the raising the price of your rental property and you're bringing in more money. So that's a little bit about the economy. Next and last but not least is our government regulations. So first of all, we had the big Inflation Reduction Act. And again, as you can see next to it, there's no inflation reduction anything in that act. But there's big EV tax credits for new use and commercial usage, excuse me for the typo. There's big tax credits for charging stations. Now, by the way, if you are going to be in Richmond, Virginia for CIC in April, this is going to be one of the big subjects our governmental committee talks about. We're also our emerging technology committee is going to talk about EVs as well. And then, of course, we have the ongoing right to repair legislation in Massachusetts and other states. You know, and I can come down on both sides of that. I mean, I know because I'm deeply involved in ADAS technologies on vehicles. The OEMs are deathly afraid of their vehicles being hacked through the OBD connector, and because they're giving everybody access to the safety systems on the vehicle. On the other hand, you know, repairers want to be able to repair the car. So, you know, there's a lot of pros and cons on that. I think that's still to be determined. I think ultimately there'll be a solution. I don't know what it's going to be. And then you've got all these different laws in different states and different municipalities. You've got consumer privacy laws, which are growing in different states and different communities. You got the appraisal clause laws being debated in multiple states. So you've got a lot of governmental activities going on that are affecting our industry. And again, many of you on this call are probably involved in your local markets related to your government regulations. So there you have it. So again, 10 influences that I think are going to affect us in 2023. Consolidation, again, I think not going away. Going to continue to increase in all aspects of the industry. I think, again, I said earlier, ADAS services and calibrations, to me, biggest business opportunity our industry has seen in 20 years. I think we're going to continue to struggle with employee shortages. I think the shops are going to get more and more insurance technology pushed at them because the insurance companies are trying to find a way to become more efficient, to give the consumers what they want and to cut costs. I think from a parts perspective, again, I think it's going to get better, but it's not going to, there's no panacea. I think we're still going to have parts problems, which means we're going to have length of rental problems. and et cetera, with problems in shops. OEMs are going to continue to put more influence on every aspect of our industry because they have to, because of the complexity of the vehicles. And as I said, BEVs are here to stay. There's too much money being put into them today. So if you're on the coast, if you're one of the shops on the coast, many of you may have already been involved in these. I think you're going to see a ton of new business technologies affect our industry. There's always new technologies. I pay attention to that because it's the business I'm in, and I do see a lot of new technologies being worked on, and it will come to our marketplace sometime in 2023. We all know what's going on in the economy, and last but not least, as I said in the last slide, our government can't seem to find ways just to stay out of our way. They love to get involved in everything everybody does, so we're going to see more and more of that. So Melissa, there you have it. I will open it up to the attendees for any Q&A.
Does anybody have any questions for Frank? I just want to let everybody know that I will send Frank's contact information along with a copy of the presentation out after we're done here today. I don't see anything, Frank. Well, feel free to follow up with him directly. I want to thank Frank for sharing his thoughts on what you see as the industry's influences for 2023. We'll look back again next year and we'll see how you did.
Okay.
And we really appreciate your time today. Thanks, everyone. And if anybody wants more information on RDA, our members and our programs, you can go to our website at www.rda-impact.com. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Take care. Bye.